dog tiger, call me out, why don't you love? Lift me up higher, above the clouds, won't you love? When the scenery is right, go right in. I wanna fall deep within. Don't leave me hanging just 'cause I'm too proud. Whisper away my outdated doubts.
Morning guys, I don't know the exact name of where we're at the moment, but I'll put the name up here if I can find it. We've turned off onto a little lookout, and there is quite a spectacular view of some rather large peaks in behind me, and I thought I'd take the opportunity just to set up the camera and shoot a time lapse of those 4 or 5 peaks and the mist moving up through the valley and the cloud and light dancing around on the peaks of those mountains. Settings are fairly straightforward. I've got it set at f16 and I've got this running over 240 exposures, so it should end up giving me about 10 seconds worth of footage. The birds around here are singing away. It's quite a crisp morning, and it's a really spectacular place to drive through, and the mountains are really starting to reveal themselves through all the mist and rain as we head up through the divide on our way out of Milford Sound. Anyway, I'll shoot this set and put some of the time lapse up. I've also taken some other handheld shots of some of the mountains around here. I might have a look at those, processing those later on. Anyway, we'll get back on the road shortly as we begin our long drive from the west coast across the South Island to the east coast. And at this stage, our plan is to stop in a town called Tiana for the night, and then from there we'll continue on eastward to another town called Kaka Point. I'm hoping to shoot a sunrise at a place called Nugget Point lighthouse in a few days' time. I'll put some of the images up now, and we'll continue our drive across the South Island, and I'll talk to you soon from Nugget Point. G'day guys, so we've driven basically across the South Island. We left Tiana this morning and we've now arrived at Nugget Point, and it's late in the afternoon, and we're just doing a bit of a recce of the area, and the hope is to come back and shoot this at sunrise. It's quite an iconic location. There's lots of photos of it all over the internet, and I couldn't resist coming along and trying to get a shot for myself. Alright, so I've had a bit of a look around on this little scouting mission to Nugget Point lighthouse, and I think there's a couple of compositions that I'll be able to shoot in the morning, but it's all dependent on how many photographers are here when I arrive. Plan is to get here at about 5 AM or just after, and hopefully that'll put me as one of the first here, and I might be able to get prime position. Now there's a series of other shots, and they're all over social media and online, where photographers set up their camera up on the cliff top up here, and you get a great view of the path leading up to the lighthouse as a leading line, and then you can see the rocks off the coast, or the sea stacks off the coast, and you get the sun rising in behind that. But unfortunately there's a couple of big signs that have been erected: do not go up here, you risk death from collapsing cliffs, etc. So whilst it says you can't go up there, it's highly recommended you don't. And I'm not sure that I really want to potentially die for this photograph, so I might, hopefully if I'm here first, I might be able to set up and just shoot a slightly different composition to the ones you see all over the web. So just here is my really preferred position to shoot Nugget Point lighthouse, and that way I'm getting a really nice leading line from the path and the flax on the top of the cliff there out to the lighthouse. And the sun should be rising just off to the left of the lighthouse in my frame, and hopefully we'll get a bit of clear weather on the horizon and we'll get a nice sunrise. Anyway, I'll slowly make my way back to the van now. I might actually look for a few other compositions that are along the path, just in case I turn up here and there's a busload of photographers here at 5 AM and I can't get the shot I want. Beautiful area around here. It's quite amazing to see the ocean again after spending so much time in the mountains and the rivers of the fjordland area of New Zealand. But it's quite nice to be back on the coast and slightly warmer, and we'll set up shop here tonight at Kaka Point, and that's about a 10-minute drive from where we are at the moment. Anyway, I'll continue having a look around, and I'll see you in the morning. Alright, cheers. So good morning from Nugget Point Lighthouse, and I've been treated to a reasonably spectacular sunrise this morning. Got here nice and early, about 5:30 in the pre-dawn light. Made our way down through the path in the darkness and managed to get the spot that I was hoping for, which was just up on the ridge of the cliff that overlooks the path that leads onto the lighthouse. Shot a series of bracketed images this morning, and also some long exposures through a 10-stop neutral density filter. I'm not sure how they'll turn out. It was probably a little bit too early for that technique, but the bracketed images should come together nicely in post-production. Shooting an aperture of f13, f16, and the exposures were anything from 30 seconds right through to a quarter of a second. And shooting that bracket obviously gives me the opportunity to exposure blend in post-production and retain all the highlights and the shadows as well. I'm just going for a little walk now. I'll have a look to see if I can get a few more compositions. There's one other photographer here, and I might head up to the lighthouse and shoot the actual sea stacks off the point, and hopefully I'll get the clouds breaking up in behind me here, so I might get some really nice golden light on the sides of those sea stacks. So I'm up here on the point where the actual lighthouse is, and there's a bit of a lookout platform that looks out over these sea stacks and out to the ocean. And I've decided I'm going to shoot a few long exposures through my 10-stop neutral density filter. So as you can probably see behind me here, there's some quite dynamic and bright light breaking through these clouds, and there's a bit of a gap in the clouds over here, and I'm just hoping that that cloud front moves across, allowing the sun to sort of bathe all of the sea stacks in light. It's kind of starting to happen now, and I'll probably start shooting the long exposure shortly. I'm shooting a vertical composition because when I shoot wide I'm getting all of this glare out on the ocean surface out here, and it's quite distracting in the image. I thought about putting a polarizer on, but because I'm shooting directly into the sun, that's really not going to have too much effect on such bright light conditions, and decided to shoot a vertical composition and crop right in on just the sea stacks leading out to the ocean and the clouds above that. With this sort of composition I'm able to actually crop out all of that bright light that's hitting the ocean surface in behind me. Out off in the distance, I'll just swing around over behind me here. Some really beautiful golden light was hitting all of that mountain a couple of seconds ago, so I'm hoping that's the light coming through the clouds in over on the horizon. And once this cloud front moves across and I get a bigger gap in the clouds, that's when I'll get all the beautiful golden light on the sea stacks below. It's just a waiting game, but I'm more than happy to wait in such a beautiful location. I've got the place to myself now. The other photographer packed up and headed off. And yeah, so I'll just sit up here, relax, put the feet up, and wait for the light show to happen. So unfortunately, it looks more and more like Mother Nature's not going to play ball with my long exposure and the golden light on the sea stacks. The cloud front seems to have turned a little bit, and now it's heading out towards the sun. So that gap that I was looking for looks like it won't eventuate. Anyway, I've shot a few long exposures here. Probably not ideal light conditions, but you know, what can you do? That's all part of landscape photography. I'll pack the camera up soon and head back to the van, have a nice hot cup of tea, and then we're off and heading up the coast towards Dunedin. As always, thank you so much for watching these little videos from New Zealand. I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing and the content that I'm putting together. It is an absolutely spectacular collection of landscapes here on the South Island, New Zealand, and I'm very privileged to have come along on this little trip and do a bit of a hot lap of the island. We're about halfway through, coming from the mountains on the west coast. Now we're on the east coast. We're heading back up the east for a day or two into Dunedin, and then heading off across again into Mount Cook and all the alpine regions around there. Anyway, I'll put some of the images I've shot here this morning at Nugget Point Lighthouse up on screen now, and I hope you enjoy and have a great day. Right, cheers.
Thank you.